Hello everyone and welcome back to the Gaelic Lives podcast. We're here for a review show and we're looking back at all the action from across the province over the weekend. We have a couple of new county champions and a couple of games still to be decided and a couple of old county champions as well across the board. So Mal, we'll come to you first. The Derry final was on this weekend. I suppose the two big hitters in Glen and Slackneil have been the top two teams for the last couple of years, but there's new kids in town, and Newbridge certainly the new kids in town two in a row. I know probably they weren't everybody's, not everybody backed them from the start of the year, but they went on and they've done two in a row.
Yeah, Sean, a 12th title for Newbridge, and as we have spoken about on the pod, the third year in a row has been the same four teams, and Newbridge and Magherafelt have definitely been the form teams, albeit Newbridge's last three games, Sean, the semi-final with Steelstown, their game with Slaughtneil, and obviously yesterday as well, games they could have lost, but they found that way, they found form. And I suppose Conor McAteer did say after the game, the captain, that it wasn't that long ago they were struggling to even win a knockout game of any description, and they got a couple of trimmings in semi-finals. But I go back to last year's final. They played against Glen, and it was as if they'd been playing in finals for 4 or 5 years. It was like a duck to water. And to be fair, yesterday was the same, and like they did lose to Dungiven. But as you'll hear Gary Hetherington talking about, it was the session before the Slaughtneil game where they found the form really starting to change. Yesterday's game, they held Magherafelt scoreless for, I think, around about 20 minutes. Shane Hetherington scored 1-5 for the Rossa in the first half, their entire scoreline, and his goal put Rossa 1-4 to 1-2 up. But before that, Conor Doherty had a high ball into the square, flicked to the net by Callum McGrogan, just the perfect start for Newbridge. And they just sort of, Sean, they just really got into the groove. Sean Young and Conor Doherty were pretty impressive in that opening quarter. Whenever, like Magherafelt definitely came into this final with form from the point of view that they were nearly blitzing teams in the first quarter, but Newbridge just didn't allow that to happen. It was all about them. And then there was a spell in the second half where I think Newbridge really took over. Conor McAteer, Paddy McGrogan, who obviously missed last year's final, they all started to have a stamp on the game. And at a stage, you actually felt, I think it was Oisin Doherty kicked a 2-pointer for 114 to 1-8, and you felt there was only ever going to be one winner. Then Shane Hetherington kicked an almighty 2-pointer. I think it was from a breach, but just when they needed a score, and Magherafelt were back on track. And in around that time, Dan Higgins landed a 2-pointer, and you sort of looked around, Sean, and there was only 4 points in it. And Conor McCluskey had a score, and there's only one in it, and the game was just sitting right on the edge. But I suppose over the air, Newbridge were thoroughly deserving winners. And I think what as much as Shane Hetherington kicked very well, in fairness, Magherafelt lost Paddy McLaren to an early injury, which hampered them. As much as Shane Hetherington, he scored 1-8. I think the biggest strength of this Newbridge group has been just have so many players you can chip in. Like whenever you're having a conversation for man of the match from yesterday's final, you have Conor McAteer, Conor McGrogan, Sean Young, Paddy McGrogan in the second half. There was just so many impressive performances, and I think that's what will probably please Newbridge, apart from the fact that they're sitting today with a cup and a 12th title, and they've backed it up, and they're starting to establish themselves again because they have tremendous tradition. I think the thing that'll set them apart today is just how they've put in the 3 big performances in a row, Sean, I suppose whenever it mattered. And that was the big thing that they'll take out of that. And then obviously they've got a tie with Dunloy coming up, but a really entertaining final. And I suppose Newbridge have brought entertainment all the way through, and they were, last year's final was an exciting as well. So I was down in Newbridge last night, and the cup come in. We've said it here so often before, where there's celebration and families and kids, and just colour and all that goes with that. And again, it's a wee bit like Nolan with the intermediate title. It's Newbridge's 100th year, so just a brilliant day all round.
The 100th year thing, I know Sarsfield won intermediate in Armagh. They're celebrating their 100th next year, so that's a lucky sort of charm this year, Mal. But
the only thing about that, Sean, is like they've all celebrated the 100th year, but a couple of Glenollan people were talking to me over the weekend where, they've got celebrations pending, and then we know ourselves in Gaelic Life, lads, how condensed Ulster is. So, I don't know how these functions fit in. Maybe they'll fall in hurling weekends for them. I'm not sure, but they'll not be worrying about it today. That's for sure. They'll be worrying about trying to see how well they can celebrate. And here, well deserved. Anybody who wins the county championship is entitled to celebrate it. And Newbridge, for a team, as I say, with so much tradition, they're definitely back. They're back in the top of the table in Derry.
Any of them 100 years for Glenollan has Owen Bradley been playing?
It seems like about 99 of them. Here, that point he scored was awesome. And again, I know we mainly touch on senior in this podcast, but like to give that point a wee bit of context, Sean, Glenollan got off to a really good start. Their inside forward lane was exceptional, and sort of blitzed forward lane early on. Forward lane had a spell in the third quarter, and they got it back to level. And just before Owen Bradley's 2-pointer, actually missed a 14-yard free that I actually marked down in my book. And they missed a couple of scores, and Ford Lane had a chance to maybe work an equaliser. But Glenollan turned it over, and they worked a shot. And I actually interviewed Michael O'Keefe, their manager. He's his cousin. And I says, was Skinner ever going to pass that last ball? And he just laughed, and he said that Owen had said to him that he wasn't going to play this year. And when Michael was appointed as manager, he rang up and he says, Michael, I'm going to come back out playing. I'm going to win you a championship. And he did. And Alan Gunn was saying apparently that that was one of the first things Skinner told him after the match. He says, I told you I'll win you a championship. So the Skinner man lives on.
Just before we move on and hear from Gary Hetherington, the Newbridge boss, Mal, you mentioned Ulster now. Newbridge were there last year. They played, I think it was the first round, they played Clonard and forced them all the way, but just missed out. They've denied now, then they've a first round clash against the Armagh champions, I think, in Ulster. Last year's sort of experience going back to back now, the fact that, there's so many teams, we mentioned Clonard and they're out, Ergel Kieran's out, there's a list of Gargan there out. Is there a chance for Newbridge to maybe get in a provincial run here?
There certainly is. They've got number one, Sean. They've got the quality. Number two, as it says, last year whenever they danced with Glen, who were All Ireland champions, they just fitted in like a glove. And again, they've came back. Paddy McGrogan has been added to their equation. Sean Young, Cahir McBride have come in. Shane McAteer missed last year's campaign with an injury. And you see that Clonard game, as much as Clonard, were a good side, it wasn't until the very end. I think it was that Conor McConville pulled away. He was pretty impressive for him, if my memory serves me right, and they got a score just at a crucial stage. But, you're chatting about Ulster, like Dunloy are maybe quite similar to Newbridge and Maher, felt loads of energy and loads of excitement. So that has the potential to be a real humdinger, and there's chat of it being televised. So, maybe we'll know more next week when we're chatting on here. But no, it's and again, and I know you lads are going to be chatting about the rest of the campaign through Ulster. Kilcoo 7 in a row. If and that Naomh Connell team, they make a habit out of winning games. I was going to say winning games when they're not expected to, but winning games full stop. Add in Rorty and a few of the new players to it. So you definitely could see, and I know Kilcoo will be listening in and thinking, we've been there so many times, but there's a potential of a new name in that cup. So that's the exciting part from ourselves with the All-Stars and Gaelic Life. So we'll just have to keep our eyes peeled.
Yeah, a lot can happen. I suppose before now and when that cup's lifted, Mal. So as I said, you spoke to Gary Hetherington after the Newbridge win. So we're going to hear from him now, and then me and Nell are going to discuss the rest of the action from around the province. So we'll hear from Gary now, and then we'll be back with me on now.
Chat next week, man. What a feeling to have retained the title. You spoke to me last week about how difficult it was to try and win the title and won it twice, but you've done it. What's that feel like?
Oh, it's sweet, Mal. It really is. Like I've said, that it's far better than last year. Far better than last year, because look, we knew that nobody gave us a chance this year. You know, we knew that people were saying we won it too early and it was a fluke and we shouldn't have beat Glen, blah blah blah. We heard all that from outside the club, obviously, but that's why it's that wee bit more sweeter this year.
The performance, and in the second half when it came back to 4 points, what do you feel changed? Because you ended up winning, obviously.
Yeah, I think we were 6 up in the second half at one stage, weren't we?
Got back to 4.
Yeah, we made a bad mistake and we made a bad breach, and then we got nervous and we had a few bad kickouts, and we sort of lost what we were doing for that 5 or 10 minute period to let them back into a point. But then our control on the ball, and we got really brave on the ball in the last 5 minutes, like when Conor McGrogan went in the kick out at the very end, like that just sums up.
Possession with everything at that time.
Possession.
I was on commentary thinking this is a biggie here.
Yeah,
you know, at that stage.
And you're probably sitting on the sideline, just kick it out, Nathan. Just kick it out, and we'll try and win the break. But look, Conor McGrogan, lads, is like that lad's got us out of more holes in the 2 years that I've been here. Balls, luck and possession, and the way we kept it down here. And I'm not sure, did we get the score, or he just blew it up? I think he blew it up.
I think it was after the last. I think it was after the one that went wide.
It was a great one. It was a great kick out to win. And look, fair play to Maher. Felt like we knew what was coming. We prepared for what was coming, and we nullified it really well. Like, as well as people that talk about our attack, I was immensely proud of the way we defended today. The turnovers inside the small D.
Shane McGrogan made a rob up in that box one time when the trigger was being pulled.
Yeah, and Shane McGrogan as well. I think had a couple of turnovers, but to answer your question, it's sweeter.
This is probably a harder question. What is it about the group? You're obviously not from Newbridge, but you're in there and you're very much in the middle of it all. What is it about them?
Just that drive, Mal. The drive and the want to be coached, and the want to be learned. The want to learn, and they're so like. I spoke to a fella before I took the job, and he just says they're the most coachable group you'll ever come across, and he's not wrong. Like they till a man like 30. They won the third championship. The boys coming out of everywhere that just want to play football and want to learn, and like you know the size of Newbridge, it's not massive, like. But
Paddy Gribbin says to me in an interview during the year, he says there's people come back to play this year. You know, they just wanted to be part of it all.
Yeah. Look, that's the environment that you want to create, and you know, me and Kevin had come in there, and it was brilliant before we arrived, and we just tweaked a few things and pushed a few men a wee bit harder and asked a few more questions of boys, and they just kept coming back looking more. Like the amount of times that we have blue training sessions up, and it's a crying match.
We want more.
Yeah. And that's incredible. Like, they really are. They're an incredible group, incredible people that run that club, and I can't speak highly enough of them.
Out of interest, was this week one of those sessions, because you hit the ground running?
Yeah, Thursday night we trained, and we trained for, believe it or not, I'm not joking, we trained for an hour and 20 minutes. And we normally only train for an hour, and we blew it up, and they're crying on 5 more minutes, give me 5 more minutes.
Just in a game?
Just in a game. We do that every Thursday. We'd play 20-25 minutes of a 15v15 game, and it was incredible. But what set the tone for me was the Sunday before we played Slaughtneil, and we played a 45 minute game, and since I arrived, it was the best I've seen amongst ourselves. 15
just an in-house game among yourselves.
15v15, it was immense. Just the intensity and the quality, and they just keep turning up.
So now there was a few other county finals on over the weekend. I don't know, Fermanagh, the reigning champions are in Gales and Derry. They're going to have to do it all again. They finished level.
Yeah, sounded like a brilliant game, and I'm probably not going to do it justice in that respect. But I suppose Derry were the form team in this year's championship, but Aaron Gales remain defending champions, and on top of that, they've shown a hell of a lot of resolve throughout the championship. Like they pulled off a bit of a slash and grab against Saturday in the semi-final, and these things don't happen by chance, you know. And I suppose that was the story of yesterday's game. Derry were 5 points up with about 15 minutes remaining, but Aaron Gales with a goal from Paul Ward, and they end up getting a leveler right at the death from Seamus Ryder to set up a replay. Sounded like a great game. One of the big talking points, Derry Donnelly, the man sent off after 10 minutes, and Regan McGovern, who's been playing very well, scored a couple of points, and he got sent off for an off-ball incident after Aaron Gales scored a goal. So in theory, that was a big setback for Derry Donnelly, but they pushed on and they were a couple of points ahead, I think. They were 3 points ahead of half time, and the third quarter was just down dust. It was great stuff, but then Derry Donnelly, as I said earlier, pulled ahead by 5, and it looked like they were getting there, so to speak. But Aaron Gales snatched that goal and a few points to death just to set up a replay. So great game from the sound of things, and maybe a draw was a fair result, just given everything that happened over the course of the game.
Yeah, and as Mal mentioned, Kilcoo won in Down 7 in a row. First time it's ever been achieved. They were there in 2018, trying to get the done 6 in a row at that stage. They were in the final in 18, and Byrne actually beat them to stop the 7 in a row. So they were back yesterday. Probably a bit of pressure on their shoulders, although I know we had a piece with Caleb Doherty last week, and he made the case that they weren't looking at history. It was about the next game that was about Kerry Duff, but obviously I'm sure there was good celebrations in that in Kilcoo having completed that 7 in a row. And this game, it was pushed back to 5 p.m. Obviously the rain and the weather over the weekend didn't help Park Isler, but they got the game played anyway, and Kilcoo were just the better team on the day. Has probably been the way it has been in Down. Plenty of teams have pushed Kilcoo very close in the last couple of years, no more so than Clonduff the last day out in the semi-final, but it's pushing them close and beating them is just two completely different things. And Kilcoo started really well. Paul Devlin, he slotted home an early penalty for Kilcoo, and I think he was man of the match. He got 1-3 on the day for Paul Devlin, and I seen yesterday that was his 14th county title, so a huge day and a huge performance from Paul Devlin. That got them up and running. They were leading for right through the game, and about in around the 45 minute mark, they actually went 9 points ahead, which is an incredible gap in a county final. They've opened up. Now, Kerry Duff did come back into it. Owen Donnelly, who we know, a former Fermanagh captain, he got a goal, and it was followed up by a 2-pointer by John McGill, who got a couple of goals with Down this year as well, so we know he's a bit of a sharpshooter. That brought Kerry Duff back into it. Just for a bit of context, this was Kerry Duff's second ever county final. They've never won one. Obviously, they were there in 2020 when they lost to Kilcoo. So they've a great team, they've a great setup. I'm sure they'll be back, but Sunday belonged to Kilcoo, and while Kerry Duff did sort of get back into it later on, Kilcoo always had them at arm's length, and they're going to head into another Ulster Championship campaign. And with the list of teams not there that we'd mentioned, they're probably the favourites at the minute. Now, they've Connell, I think, is their first round game, so it's a huge tie. Two teams well experienced in the Ulster Championship. And Scottstown, of course, they have Inniskeen this weekend, and Scottstown well used to be in an Ulster as well. So no foregone conclusions in the provincial championship, but I would think Kilcoo may be heading in as the early favourites to claim an Ulster title. And then there was another replay. We were talking about draws earlier on. Another replay in Tyrone, Lochmacrory and Carrickmore playing to set up a date with Trillick. So how did this one all pan out?
Yeah, another brilliant game, just like the drawn encounter. Say it's a real privilege to be at both those matches. They were just fantastically entertaining and brilliant atmosphere at both games as well. Big crowds and everything else, I suppose the game on Friday night, and it actually seems a long time ago now, because there were intermediate and junior finals on in Tyrone over the weekend, so there's plenty happening. But the replay was a bit different, even though it was very close. Obviously, it was a bit different than the drawn encounter fought in terms of how it all panned out. I thought in the first half, I can't actually remember the half-time whistle off the top of my head. I think Lochmacrory won by a point maybe, but they should have been further ahead. They had a hell of a lot of chances. They had a few, probably more than a few wides really. And that probably opened the door a wee bit to Carrickmore. You're thinking, Jesus, could Lot McCoy come to regret this? But overall, the first half probably. It wasn't as good as the second, put it that way. The game really caught fire in the second half. A hell of a lot happened. It's really hard to make sense of it all. Carrickmore ended up with 4-6. They got a number of goals in the second half. Just when it looked like Loughnacurry were sort of edging ahead, North McGarty, he's a really good prospect, I think. He scored a brilliant individual goal. I think that might have brought it back level, just out of nowhere, really. It really was a brilliant individual goal. He just marched past the three lads and lost them to net. And what I recall, Loughnacurry sort of edged ahead again, and then Carrickmore got another goal. Yeah. And then right at the end, near the end, because a few more things happened. A few very significant things happened in the final 5 minutes. Loughnacurry were awarded a penalty, and up stepped Rory McCullough, who you probably know from playing underage football with Tyrone in recent years, and he's a great, like Lorcan McGarty I mentioned earlier, is another brilliant prospect. The shot hit the post, and that would have won the game. That definitely would have won the game for Loughnacurry. So the shot hit the post, and then 30 seconds later, Carrickmore were awarded a penalty down the other end. And here in Loughran, who had a very good game, stepped up for what was his second goal. That put Carrickmore 1 point ahead. I think it was the first time he made a lead all match. Loughnacurry had probably been the better team and probably the best individual performances, from the likes of Cahill-Donaghy. He had a monster championship in the middle, another great game. Shane Dobbs was excellent in the second half, Rory McCullough. Some really brilliant individual performances, but Carrickmore, they never go away. They gave it absolutely everything, and they're 1 point up in injury time. So there's 2 minutes left to play. Loughnacurry ferried the ball down the field, and Rory McCullough had missed the penalty. Showed serious balls, I suppose you could say, to kick a 2-pointer. It turned out to be the winning score. But there was still time for Carrickmore to get something from the game, maybe saying at the extra time. But they coughed up a free, and that was more or less it. There was pretty memorable celebrations after the game as well. It was Loughnacurry's first ever appearance in the senior championship semi-final. So, by extension, is their first ever appearance in the senior final. They'd also beaten their parish rivals Carrickmore. So there was a lot of euphoria after the final whistle. A lot of sportsmanship as well. Handshakes all around. Yeah, it was a very memorable night, and sets up. I suppose Loughnacurry can't afford to dwell on it too much because they've got this county final against Hurling on Sunday.
Do you think, would you give them a good chance now against Tyrone?
I do. I don't see why he won't put it up to them. Tyrone are favourites, naturally enough. They're going for their fourth title in 11 years, and I suppose I could talk about Tyrone all day because they've been getting the finals, win or lose, for so long now, over such a sustained period over the course of the last decade. They're obviously bidding to make amends for losing last year. They've been driven on by the memory of Jody Gormley, and they've a lot of county players and a lot of ex-county players. So Tyrone are a brilliant team, and they're favourites for good reason. But at the same time, I wouldn't discount Loughnacurry either. They deserve to be in the final. They've been making steady progress for the last 3 or 4 years. Some of the best young players in the county, and they're a very well-drilled team. Obviously, the fact you conceded 4 goals, that's something they're going to have to look at. But I think it'll be a great final. Yeah, but definitely give Loughnacurry a chance. As I said, Tyrone are favourites for good reason, but I can't see it being a walkover, Sean. It's a great pairing anyway. Loughnacurry appearing in the first ever final, and Tyrone are bidding for their 10th title as well. So there's a wee bit of history there in line for Tyrone too. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's a big one, and there's a few big county finals coming up this weekend. I think Tyrone, Armagh, Monaghan are all to be decided, and obviously that Fermanagh replay as well. But there was big hurling news at the weekend too. St John's in Antrim got their hands on the senior championship trophy for the first time. I think it's from 1973, so a huge occasion for them. They beat that Gael in the final with 1 point to spur in the end, and Donal Kjarson's goal in the first half gave them a 3-point lead. They were leading 1-8 to 8 points at half time, and they got another goal. Oisin McManus, he got a goal for St John's, and I don't think they were ever comfortable, but it gave them just a nice cushion in that second half. And then Sean McGrath got a goal for that Gael, and that brought them back in that and probably made St John's sweat a wee bit. I don't know, they could have done a few goals. Donal Nugent in the St John's nets was superb, pulled off a few really good saves, had to get down very low on a couple of occasions to keep the ball out of his net. And they just held on for dear life in the last couple of minutes. And to get over the line by a point, it's a huge occasion for them. And I know there was quite good content on Instagram and Twitter yesterday, just of celebrations, and you see the emotion and what it means to people. Such a long wait for St John's. They'd stumbled at the semi-final spot a couple of times down through the years in recent years. So to get over the line, and it's a massive occasion for them. And they go into Ulster now. They play Setanta from Donegal. So in the semi-final, so a big opportunity for both sides to possibly reach an Ulster final. So lots to look forward to in the Ulster campaign, and of course lots to look forward to in the couple of county finals coming up next weekend, and we'll be looking ahead to them as usual in the Gaelic Life PDF and our papers. So we'll be previewing all those games, and we'll discuss them next Monday as well, once we know the outcomes and who are the new county champions in the various counties. So Niall, thanks very much for coming on and chatting to us. Thanks to Mal and Gary earlier for giving us their thoughts on the Derry game, and we'll be back hopefully with another podcast later in the week. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and thanks Niall.
Thanks, Sean. After that.